Hello, my name is Nico Matsakis. If you don't know me, I am one of the lead designers of the Rust programming language. I'm a senior principal engineer at Amazon, and I'm not here to talk to you about any of that. I'm here to show you off, or show off to you, a cool project I've been hacking on. It's meant to, it basically demonstrates the workflow that I'm using for agentic tools right now. And I have to tell you that I've been having a whole lot of fun messing with agentic tools because they're just so flexible. I think it's really cool. They're basically like a while loop, and when you add in MCP servers, you can kind of make them do anything. So I love that. But also, by default, they're kind of annoying as well in some ways. And I think if you've used one, you'll kind of know what I mean. Where, first of all, I don't love being spoon-fed a bunch of diffs like hunk by hunk and having to say yes, yes, no, yes, no. I prefer to review a whole bunch of work at once. Plus, at least with Claude, which is what I mess with the most, it feels like they're just so geared for action. If I even just hint that maybe I might not be fully satisfied with the way something works, Claude's going to run off and go edit all the files in the code base and delete half of them. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, slow down. Like, let's talk this out. I want to have a conversation. I'm actually not sure how I think it should work. Let's figure it out. But what I found is if you set things up the right way and if you kind of talk to Claude in the right way, you can get a really awesome brainstorming partner, someone who will talk things through with you. And then I started wanting more. Then I started wanting like basically interfaces and tools to make that collaboration easier and more effective. And the other thing is I started getting, a little bored because as fast as AI code generation can be, and I think it can be really fast. It's also like in the small, it's kind of slow. Like you say, hey, we've designed this whole thing, and then you say, do it. And then it's like, okay, now I got to wait for like 10, 20, 30 minutes. I don't know, whatever. I got to wait for a while Claude runs off and does things. And I get bored. So I wanted a way to switch over to other projects and make good use of that time. And this is where Symposium comes in. So what is Symposium? So it's actually kind of complicated because I'm still exploring and figuring things out. But it's a combination of an MCP server, an OS X desktop application, and a VS Code extension that all kind of work together. And right now it's tailored to my workflow, which means it works best, or it requires OS X and VS Code, and I've only ever tried it on Claude, and it does extra cool things for Rust. But it's meant to be a sort of glue software that can adapt itself into other workflows. I would love for it to support a whole bunch of other editors. I've been wanting to try Zed, so I should probably make that work, and so on. Anyway, let me just show you what it does. Uh, right, so actually, here's my screen, and what you can see I have things kind of set up here. Over here, this is the Symposium application, the GUI app I was talking about, the Mac OS X app. And what it does is you have a checkout of some project. Actually, you have many checkouts, right? You have some project defined. In this case, this is actually Symposium itself. And you have these different cards. And these cards, each of them represents a task space, which means one Git work tree, so one clone of the code, combined with an agent that's active in that workspace. Right? So these are kind of each a VS Code window, if you will, looking at a different copy of the code. Usually I have them kind of small. And I can click on them and that'll bring them to the front. Right? So here's one. Um, and this is like a mini kind of not very good window manager. I'm working on a slightly better version, but right now it handles this thing called stacking. I'm going to turn it off for a second so you can see what I mean. And when you stack the windows, it kind of puts them all in the same place, so you only see one at a time. But they're all kind of hiding back there. And so I'm going to keep stacking on. And then it also has this super dorky hack. Oh, it's not working. Okay, well, demoware, you know what you're going to do. Oh, there we go. That's better. Where when you drag around or resize it, it kind of resizes them all to match, which makes it slow and annoying, but also kind of fun. So anyway, here I am inside one of these task spaces, and you see that it starts up a, let me get this thing out of the way. I always forget how to do this, like this or something. You see that it kind of starts up an agent. Here, this is QCLI. It started with a really small width window, so it looks kind of funny, but anyway, whatever. And so you can talk to it and do stuff, right? And one of the things you can do is say, hey, so I'd say, hi, Claude. How are you today? And one of the things, thanks for asking. Good. Well, one of the things, hopefully you can read this. Maybe I'll make it a little bigger. There we go. One of the things you can do is you can actually work with the task-based systems. You can say, actually, yes, there is something specific you can help me with. I am in the middle of giving a demo. We're actually recording live. And I want to show off the Taskspace system. Can you spawn a new Taskspace for me to explore? What would it make a good demo? And now what this is going to do is it's going to connect to an MCP server that hopefully is running in the background. Like I said, demoware. Looking good. That MCP server sends an IPC message under the covers. The app finds it. The app says, oh, he wants a new task space. Great. And starts the new task space. Starts a new VS Code window. Inside the VS Code window, there's an extension that notices and automatically starts up the agent. And you see it gives it this phrase, to get your initialization instructions, use this reference tool. Okay, so this is going to use another tool of mine called expand reference. We'll see it more later, which is going to get the startup instructions, which I call yasu, which means hello in Greek. So it's going to load up collaboration patterns. I'll talk more about these other things, the walkthrough format, some suggested coding guidelines. And it's going to load up, in particular, the initial thing I asked it to do, right? And now I understand my role. And then, so one of the things it can do, which it's doing here with this update task space, is it can change the name. And there's some kind of bug where this shows up at the bottom of the list. So let's just click that so it goes up to the top. And so now you see that it's set the name of the task space to be live demo design exploring. And actually, you can already see this other thing, recent activity, loaded collaboration patterns. So what's that? Well, there's another tool that we have called log progress, where it can log the progress. And the idea of this, I have to tell you, my prompt engineering, I haven't really messed with it very much, so it doesn't do it reliably. I wish I could tell you that it always did. And I have some ideas for how to make this better. But okay, I gotta stay on task. The idea of this is that while the agent's working, you'll be off doing other things, and you'll be able to kind of catch back up on what it was doing. And you can see Claude got really excited to talk to me with a lot of questions here. What is the primary value prop you want to highlight? It's actually a pretty good question. I should have thought of that before I just started randomly talking. Let me say, actually, that is a good question. I think I'd like to demonstrate. Well, let's see. We've already talked about task spaces. What about demonstrating walkthroughs? So what is a walkthrough? Well, walkthrough is the next part of this, because what I found is, it's logging its progress. Ah, cool. What I found when I was working with Claude is that it's a really great tool for diving into a new code base, right? Or even one I'm already familiar with. But I just love asking it to explain things to me, because it can go off and do research and give me pointers, and then I can read in and ask questions. And it doesn't get it 100% right. I think one of the, surprise, AIs hallucinate, but it does pretty good. And it really makes things a lot faster. But I found this was kind of annoying, like clicking back and forth between this chat and the code. And so what I wanted was some way for Claude to actually show me things much more interactively, much more like a Git pull request review. So let's see. So let me ask it actually, can you present me a walkthrough of the Rust MCP server showing what happens when an IPC message, or rather, let's see, when an MCP tool, when the spawn task space, see if I can type. Let me make this a little bigger for you all. When the spawn task space MCP tool is invoked up until the IPC message goes out to the Swift code, then show me, we'll just start with that. Include a diagram because it looks cool. So Let me show you what's happening now. So what the agent is going to do now is it's going to run and generate a markdown document. Actually, first it's doing a little. Oh, this is cool. This is cool. So first it's doing some exploration to give me a better answer. And one of the things it's using is this IDE operation tool, which is one that Symposium also offers that I hadn't planned to talk about, but here it's doing it, which is letting it actually access the language server protocol implementation running in VS Code so it can like find the definition for spawn Taskspace. And then once it found that definition, I guess it's actually reading it from the disk. That's cool. It's doing more things. I don't know what. It's using more IDE operations, but this time just to do searching, which is basically like grep grep, but not. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's doing a bunch of stuff. I don't know what it's doing now. It's neat. Okay, it's cool, it's cool. So yeah, it's figuring out the answer to my question, right? Now I have enough information. Let me present you the walkthrough. So now what it's going to do, now that it's gathered information, is it's going to create a markdown document and send it to me through an MCP tool, which is going to again go over that IPC bus I talked about, but this time arrive at the VS Code extension. Well, let's see if it works. Cross fingers. It's preparing quite the presentation here. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So that brings us to this little Symposium thing. Oh, you see, it's really doing a good job. Thank you, Claude. You're making my demo look good. You see that it signaled me. That's another thing it can do, is signal the user to say, hey, I've reached an important point. And actually, if we flip back over here, you'll see that this is like highlighted in order to show that I've been signaled and I should pay attention. Right, so what did it do? The spawn task-based flow from the MCP tool to the Swift. So you can see this created a sort of walkthrough, which it can include mermaid diagrams, which can be really useful. And it can also leave comments on the code, right? So here, let me change it. Here we see that this is the Rust code for spawning a task space. And you see that it left a comment, right? Which now I can sort of see where it is. And what I can do then is if I have questions, I can click reply. And what that's going to do is take me back into the agent. And it's embedded here, this Symposium ref. I am just demonstrating the reply feature. So Symposium ref is kind of a cute hack on my part. I think it's cute. Where basically behind the scenes, we've communicated to the MCP server some information and we've given it a UUID. And then we paste into the agent, hey, there's a reference to this UUID. And the agent has instructions that says, when you see one of these Symposium refs, you should go ahead and look it up using this expand reference tool. So that gives it the context it needs to answer my question. You're demonstrating the reply feature. You clicked on the comment about this, right? So actually what I would normally do here is either ask for more details or maybe tell it like, can you rewrite this code like that or something else. Right? And of course, sometimes I want to reference things that don't have a comment on them. That's no problem. I can select, like a span of code or whatever. And then I can click discuss in Symposium. And that will also put in another reference the same way. And, if I'm using Claude Code, like I kind of get that for free. QCLI doesn't have that feature, so it's nicer in QCLI than it is in Claude Code. But even in Claude Code, it's pretty useful because sometimes I like to have more than one reference, right? Like I might say, starting from here, I don't know, whatever, and going to here, blah, 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 blah. I'm not actually going to send this message because whatever. But I've definitely found it useful sometimes to be able to embed many, many references, or at least 2 or 3. So that's cool. Now, let me show you one more thing about how it's meant to be used. You saw this little like signaling of the user. Well, here's another command that actually just fortuitously, before I started this demo, happened to reach a point of conclusion. It's a little embarrassing. I don't actually have a CI set up for this tool, so I asked it to go ahead and make one. So I'm going to click over on that. And you see what's kind of cool here is it actually has just been doing a lot of work, running tests and generating code and whatever. And when it finished, it signaled me, signal user, and it presented me a walkthrough. So now what I can do is I can actually go and review the code that it wrote. And what I asked it to do was to make cargo setup dash dash CI, just like check that everything compiles. So this project is built from Rust, TypeScript, and Swift. I'll talk a little bit more about Swift in a second. So there's actually kind of a polyglot code base. And you see I can use that same system, the one we were looking at before, to review. Okay, it added a Boolean flag, that's cool. It runs a completely separate workflow. So actually, like, this is a little weird. I'm not sure that's how I want it to be. So I can ask it, you know, did you consider, actually first let me ask it this, have you committed all the code changes? So I have instructions that tell it to commit after every block of code. It doesn't always do it, it's pretty good. And the reason is that gives me a really easy way to see what's changed and go back and forth. So always makes me feel better because I know I can always revert back. Okay, it looks like it did do it, great. I could have just checked, of course. Yeah, no dirty changes, good, good. So now I can ask it like, I was actually thinking that this is a weird flag because writing dash dash CI is not compatible with any of the other flags. Maybe we should make it a cargo setup CI subcommand instead. What do you think of that? Now, you see how I'm working? I'm like very asking lots of questions. There's actually a reason for that. It's it's partly because that's just how I talk, but it's also because Claude, and like all LLMs, right, is a probability machine. It's got a space. It's got all kinds of different personalities it could be kind of embedded in it. And when I'm nice and treat it like a human and ask its opinion, I get a different Claude out, right? I don't get I mean, I still have to sometimes pull it back, but I get much less of the like genie that is trying to fix all my problems without telling me anything, and I get less of the dumb servant that's just doing exactly what I say, and I get a bit more of an intelligent collaborator that can brainstorm with me, that can tell me if what I'm saying doesn't make sense. This is something I think we could do a hell of a lot more with, but it really makes a big difference in the experience to have that more thoughtful collaborator. Anyway, okay, it's building here, it's doing stuff. Actually, it looks like it's working, so cool. So this is actually a great, non-intentional, but a great demo of the workflow I'm talking about, where I ask it to do stuff. It went ahead and did stuff that wasn't quite what I asked for, and then I can iterate and really review the code in detail. Now, so far, nothing I showed you actually had anything to do with Rust. It's all pretty generic. It works for any language. There are some Rust-specific stuff, and I want to go a lot deeper. One of them is, like, can you tell me about the get Rust crate source tool? Did you use it at all here? So one of them is a tool that fetches the source to a Rust crate and stores it in a simple place. It's actually really convenient, because what I found is if you're trying to use a library that the agent doesn't know, having the source to that library is just the fastest and easiest way for it to figure out how to use it. And with Rust, it works particularly well because most crates include examples and demonstration code, which the AI can pick up and just run with. So that's awesome. I want to do a lot more. I'm super keen to leverage this little window here and do things like, okay, I don't know what that said, but don't worry about it. And leverage it to do things like deeply explain compilation errors, help you visualize borrow check errors, help you understand traits, and really take full advantage of what is so special about agents, what makes them so cool, which is the fact that they tailor themselves to exactly what you're doing, that you can have interactive conversations where you can reply to comments. I've already got these like buttons, for example, where if you click this button, it'll paste something in here. But I haven't really used it very much. That's just the idea. So I like this. I like the way that the button that it told me to push included a message, you can test. And it goes, oh, you're right. Oh, thanks, Claude. Good idea. Anyway, so this is the thing. Here's my video. And the last thing, which I probably should have said first, but I'm just going to leave it now, is to say this is an open source project. symposiumdev/symposium on GitHub, symposiumdev.zulipchat.com. I would love to have people help me with it. Come make it your own. This is my workflow. It sort of fits me, but I think if this is really going to be great, we have to have a lot of people banging on it, trying out the things that seem natural to them, um, and trying to encode those in tools that make them play out more easily, more effectively, and so forth. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.